Hey everyone! So it's been quite a while since I've been on here, but to be honest, I had to work up a lot of strength just to press this record button. I am not kidding. It's been a very different season of life for me. As you see in the title, I was recently diagnosed with Graves' disease and hyperthyroidism, which I'm going to explain to you guys my journey, kind of the symptoms and things that I was experiencing before I was diagnosed, and just kind of what's been going on. And I hope that this video will educate those of you who may be trying to figure out, more about hyperthyroidism, Graves' disease. But I also hope that this video will encourage you, inspire you, and motivate you to work through those tough seasons of life, whether it be your health, whether it be your marriage, your kids, your job, just all the tough things that you go through. I hope that this video can just motivate you to push through and keep going even in the midst of the struggles. All right, so I'm going to start off this video by just kind of explaining Graves' disease and hyperthyroidism and kind of sharing with you guys my journey. I'm still in the midst of the journey. I'm not healed from it, but I am doing better than I was, which is definitely progress, and I'm thankful for that. So let's start with last year. So it started in April of 2022. I had just gone into my doctor for a basic annual physical, just, getting all my blood work and just making sure everything was good. And shortly after I had the physical, my doctor called me and she told me that my thyroid levels were abnormal. More specifically, my thyroid stimulating hormone, or TSH, that was very low. And let me just explain quickly. I have my notes down here just in case you see me looking down, because I don't have everything memorized. I don't have it all together. I'm just glad I pressed start or record. So the thyroid stimulating hormone, that is what triggers your thyroid to release its hormones, which mainly impact your body's metabolism. So basically, high TSH levels, that usually indicates hypothyroidism. That's not what I have. That's the opposite of what I have. Whereas low TSH levels, that indicates hyperthyroidism, which is what I have. So basically, my TSH levels were very low. And then the T3 and T4, those are the two hormones that are essential for maintaining your body's metabolic rate. They're very important for your heart, your digestive functions, your muscle control, brain development, bone maintenance. They play a very important part. Those levels were very high. So basically my thyroid stimulating hormone, or TSH, that was very low. And then my T3 and T4 were very high. So let's talk a little bit more on TSH. Your thyroid is controlled by a gland in your brain called the pituitary gland. That gland is what makes the TSH, or your thyroid stimulating hormone. Well, your TSH tells your thyroid how much thyroid hormone to make, and sometimes things can get a little confused. So in my case, the pituitary gland for some reason is thinking there's not enough thyroid hormone, which is why I have low TSH. And so it's telling my thyroid to pump out all this excess thyroid hormone that it doesn't need, because I've got plenty. So it's just really confused right now, and it's thinking it doesn't have enough when it really has more than it needs. And that can cause a lot of havoc on your body when your thyroid is working like a workhorse when it doesn't need to be. So we'll talk more specifically on the symptoms I've been dealing with and whatnot, but I did just want to throw in a quick note just to explain why a person with hyperthyroidism would have low TSH. Because sometimes, I know right off the bat, when I first heard all this, I was thinking, wouldn't hyperthyroidism mean high TSH, hyper, high? But no, it's the opposite. So in summary, low TSH levels result in hyperthyroidism, whereas high TSH levels result in hypothyroidism. So anyhow, hope this all makes sense. So with that combination of results, that indicates that I had an overactive thyroid. So basically, she told me about that. She said, my results are saying that I may have overactive thyroid, but she wanted me to get tested again a few months later just to confirm that those findings were correct. So I went back to her in July of 2022. So like 3 months later. And my results actually came back normal at that time. So TSH was normal, T3, T4 were normal. And so she just told me to basically keep an eye on it. And she gave me like a list of symptoms to pay attention to. So I was feeling any of those symptoms, she said to check back in with her and I would be tested again. So that was July 2022. Now, August of 2022, that very next month, I ended up getting a tick bite. Ugh, it was not good. And I've had several friends who unfortunately have contracted Lyme disease from ticks. And so when I first saw the tick on me, I was just like, no. But anyhow, I ended up getting tested, like a blood test, and my test came back negative. And I also even ended up sending the tick in to be tested, the actual tick. And the results came back negative as far as Lyme disease.
Just want to give a quick update. Later on this journey, I actually did test positive for Lyme's. However, I didn't know I had it at the time I filmed this video. I ended up finding out later. It's still a mystery to this day because both me and the tick tested negative at the time I filmed this, as you just heard. To hear more on my Lyme story and how I found out I had it, I'll make sure to link that video for you to watch after this one. Now, back to the video.
However, ever since August of 2022, I had just been feeling off. I didn't feel like myself. And I really noticed it in September, that following month, just a few weeks later. I had gone on a run, and just a quick background, I'm a very active person. I normally love to run, bike, hike, jet ski, snowboard, skate. I do it all. So normally I'm very active. So I ended up doing this run, and I kid you not, 30 seconds in my run, I was literally about to pass out. My heart was like racing. It was like pounding out of my chest. I had shortness of breath, and I literally had to stop after like 30 seconds. And so I was just like, okay, this is definitely not normal. And so over the course of a few weeks, I kept running here and there, just trying to test out if that's just like was a fluke or if something is really wrong. And so I had gone running several times over the few weeks, and same thing kept happening. After 30 seconds in, my heart was pounding, shortness of breath, and I had to stop. And so by that point, I just knew something was just not right. Something else I noticed was just doing simple things like going up and down the stairs, sweeping the floors. I was very out of breath and tired. Just resting, laying in the bed at night, my heart was pounding, and I just did not know what was going on. So after, several weeks of that, I ended up reaching back out to my doctor, and I told her what's going on, and she had me get retested. And so I got those results back, and unfortunately, my thyroid levels went back to that of overactive thyroid.
Just another update. I really believe the tick bite was the trigger that caused my thyroid to go out of control. Because like I said earlier, my levels went completely back to normal when I was retested in July. But then after my tick bite incident in August, that's when I ended up getting serious thyroid problems, beginning just a few weeks after the incident. This is because Lyme disease is a type of autoimmune disease. And typically, when you get one autoimmune disease, your body becomes susceptible to getting more. And that's exactly what happened to me. I got Lyme from the tick, which triggered the other two autoimmune diseases, Graves and hyperthyroidism. So yeah, now I'm putting more of the pieces of the puzzle together, and that's at least been helping me to understand why and how my health declined so drastically in such a short amount of time.
And so at that point, she recommended me to go to an endocrinologist because she said she thought that I definitely had hyperthyroidism. So I had gone to the endocrinologist, and he ended up taking, those tests, the TSH, the T3, T4, but then he also took a lot of other tests, additional tests. And he even had me get an ultrasound done on my actual thyroid to see if there was like any nodules or anything abnormal. And so I got all the results back, and I was officially diagnosed with Graves' disease and hyperthyroidism. So at that point, I just was not super excited, obviously, to have a health issue, but at the same time, I was kind of relieved because I had been wondering, like, what is going on with me? I just felt so off. So at least all of what I was going through was validated, like, okay, it's legit. Something is wrong. I have a health condition. And so that part was kind of just relieving. But at the same time, I was just like, man, why? Why do I have to have this? It was a hard pill to swallow because I was thinking to myself, I'm not a perfect eater and I don't always get the sleep that I need to get. But, overall, I am aware of taking care of my temple and doing the things I need to do, working out, eating right most of the time, drinking water, taking supplements, all those things. But I still ended up with a health issue.
So before moving on, I just want to take a moment to explain the difference between Graves' disease and hyperthyroidism, just in case anyone's wondering, like, what's the difference? So Graves' disease is an immune system disorder that results in the overproduction of thyroid hormones. This overproduction is what leads to hyperthyroidism. So although someone could have hyperthyroidism without having Graves', it's typically more common that the Graves' disease is the main culprit causing the hyperthyroidism. That's definitely the case with me. This is similar also with the opposite problem with people who have hypothyroidism, and a lot of people have Hashimoto's disease. You might have heard of that. So it's kind of the same. Hypothyroidism and Hashimoto's disease are hand in hand, just like Graves' disease and hyperthyroidism.
So now I want to kind of go over the general symptoms of hyperthyroidism, and then I will talk to you guys about the things I personally dealt with this situation. So with hyperthyroidism, the typical symptoms to watch for are weight loss, increased appetite, fast heart rate, anxiety and nervousness, irritability, shaking and trembling of the hands, sweating, feeling warm often or greater sensitivity to heat, insomnia, frequent bowel movements, muscle weakness, thin skin and brittle hair, and changes in your menstrual cycle, usually shorter, lighter periods. So those are like the general things to watch out for. If you're experiencing a number of those things, it may be a good idea to just have some blood tests done, your TSH, your T3 and T4 especially. Those are like the main ones you want to have checked. So personally for me, like I mentioned earlier, I had rapid heart rate even at rest. So I could be laying down and my heart was literally racing like I was running a marathon. So that was one of the biggest things. And then that led to insomnia because I would literally be laying in bed and my heart is like pounding. And so there's times where I just laying there nervous and anxious that my heart is going to give out because it's just working so hard. So that was one of the top symptoms I've dealt with on this journey. Another thing I dealt with was increased appetite. So normally I have a pretty big appetite, just normally, but ever since I've had this situation going on, my appetite has been like over the roof. And that is because my body is working so hard. Everything's like really revved up. And so my metabolism's super high. And, at first thought, you're like, oh, that's a good thing. But honestly, that is not always a good thing because something else I dealt with was when I would eat, my food would literally go right through me. And so that's a concern because your body is not absorbing the nutrients. So I would be eating all this food, but it would be going right through me. And so I'm not getting the nutrients that I need. So that was a big issue. Something else I noticed was, and I still have this issue, if you look at my neck, it's like sticking out. And that's because my thyroid is inflamed. And so basically, because I have hyperactive thyroid, everything is working very hard and there's inflammation in my thyroid. So it's sticking out. Sometimes I get self-conscious about that, but I'm just like, this is a season of life And I'm hoping and praying that as I heal, the inflammation will go down and my neck will be back to normal.
I forgot to mention, a symptom I believe is linked to my large and inflamed thyroid is hoarseness in both my speaking and singing voice. This totally makes sense due to the current size of my thyroid. In fact, the last time I had an ultrasound on it, my doctor said it was at least twice the size of a normal thyroid. So it's definitely been inhibiting my voice box and causing it not to work optimally. I haven't even been able to sing much lately because it's been quite challenging. My voice would feel so tired, hoarse, and weak whenever I would try. So that's been pretty frustrating.
Another thing that I had issues with, trouble waking up, very fatigued. So like I mentioned before, because it was so hard for me to go to sleep at night because of my heart pounding and racing, when I would finally get to sleep, then I had a hard time waking up because I was so tired and worn out. And so there are times where I would set my alarm and I would just it literally felt like I was run over by a truck. So I would just go back to sleep. It was very not normal because I didn't realize it at the time, why I was feeling this way. But I was like, man, I just feel kind of lazy. Like I can't get up. I can't get out of bed. But then once I realized my issue with overactive thyroid, then I was like, okay, this is making sense. So yeah, I would literally have to sleep into the afternoon. And it was really odd for me to do that. Thankfully, I homeschool my kids and my husband works from home. So we just had to kind of shift things around to make it work for the situation at hand. So I would literally give my kids a schedule, and my husband would oversee them to make sure they're still doing their work and doing the things they need to do while I would get some sleep. And then later that afternoon or evening, then I would come out and do homeschool with them when I was more alert and had the energy. So that was very different too, just adjusting and being more flexible and just accepting the fact that I needed to get the sleep. My body was telling me something and I just need to listen. Because sometimes I'm not always good at listening. I just want to do my plan and do the things I need to do for the day, but I really had to slow down. Another thing I dealt with was night sweats. And sensitivity to heat. I was just always hot because your body's working overtime and so you're hot. So I literally have a ceiling fan and a tower fan in my room, and I was still waking up at least once, sometimes two, sometimes even three times because I'm soaking wet because I'm just sweating. So yeah, that was really quite a challenge because, you literally have to get up out of your sleep and change and get yourself together and hopefully go back to sleep. But yeah, I dealt with that pretty regularly. Something else I noticed was I was very sensitive to bright light. So if I would go outside on a bright sunny day, I would literally have to shield my eyes because it just was very uncomfortable. I also noticed some blurry kind of double vision. If I would look at a TV screen and I would look at the words on the screen for the credits, it was kind of double vision. Or if I look at a clock, on the stove, our light on the stove that has a time, it was blurry. It was hard for me to see it. So those are some things I noticed as well. I've also dealt with shakiness. I didn't even notice at first until I would put on my makeup, do my mascara, and then I would notice my hands were shaking as I was doing it. I was like, oh, that's not normal. So now that we've talked about the symptoms I dealt with, I want to talk about what things I did to try to heal. And so I actually started to see a functional doctor. Basically, a functional doctor, they're going to be more natural remedy driven rather than the conventional doctor. They're going to pretty much do medication or more drastic surgery type of stuff. So I basically wanted to get both sides of the spectrum. I wanted to hear what the functional doctor had to say, but I also wanted to hear what the conventional doctor had to say and kind of make a decision based off both. I did a lot of research on my own as well to, kind of find out what the natural way to do things are versus a conventional. So a lot of the things that they told me, I had already researched myself. So basically the natural doctor, he had recommended some natural supplements to hopefully calm my thyroid down. He also stressed a lot of things about gut health. Basically, the state of your gut, that has to do a lot with, whether or not you're going to be more prone to getting diseases. And so gut health is super important. So he told me a lot about ways I can help my gut. He told me about HCl, or hydrochloric acid, and digestive enzymes, which I had taken those over the years, but I had kind of stopped. So I had started taking HCl, digestive enzymes, and he also told me about a thyroid calming compound, and just making sure I was taking my, my regular supplements as well.
The things I'm sharing with you are what I personally did, but I'm not a doctor, so I recommend you check with your doctor before trying any of them.
So I started doing just the natural approach during the first 4-6 weeks after my diagnosis. And I was feeling a lot better. I actually was feeling a lot better after doing those things I told me about. However, I did end up getting tested again to see where my levels were after that, I would say about 6 weeks, after 6 weeks. And unfortunately, even though I was feeling better, my levels were actually still abnormal. My TSH was low and my T3 and T4 were very high. In fact, they had gotten worse. So one thing I want to point out is that just because you might look at me on the outside and be like, oh, she looks like she's doing okay to me. There was times where I even felt like I was doing okay. I really wasn't. It wasn't until I got those tests that I knew that I was not improving like I needed to. So it's not always based off how you're feeling. That's one thing I want to say. You always want to get tested. You want to get your blood test done to find out how you're really doing, because how you feel or how you look, it's not always a good indicator of how you're really doing. So I found out that my numbers were not good. My doctor, in fact, he had called me after hours because he was really concerned about me getting something called a thyroid storm. A thyroid storm, basically, that's when your thyroid gland releases an excessive amount of thyroid hormone in a short period of time. So it's a very life-threatening medical emergency that can lead to heart failure, stroke, and even death. So it is not something to be playing around with, which is why he called me after hours, because he wanted to find out, what's going on with me. So he basically told me that my levels were that of, someone who could end up with a thyroid storm. And so he felt it was in my best interest to start taking the medication, which I forgot to tell you. So the conventional side, basically their approach is to either you start taking thyroid medication. It's like a thyroid blocking medication. The one I'm currently taking is called methimazole. And basically it blocks your thyroid hormone. So your body won't keep on producing too much. And so, that's the first route they take. And if that does not work, then they do something called radioactive iodine. Basically, they give you a huge amount of iodine, and it's meant to destroy your thyroid. And if that doesn't work, then their route is to surgically remove your thyroid altogether. So based off of those choices, I wasn't really loving them. I really didn't want to get my thyroid taken out or destroyed. My desire is to keep my thyroid. God made it for a purpose, so I want to keep it if I can. So that's why I tried the natural route first, to see if I can naturally heal it. However, I think the problem is my levels were so off the charts that it was going to take more to get them down. And so that is why I started taking the medication. I don't like medication. I usually try to avoid it if I can. But I do know that, in situations where it's life-threatening, it's better to take the medication at least until you get things under control. And my goal is to get my numbers under control and then hopefully lower my dosage and then eventually be off of it altogether and maintain with healthy lifestyle, diet, gut health, supplements, and all those natural remedies. So anyhow, I agreed to take the medication, which my doctor actually had to up the dosage quite a bit because of my levels. So I first started taking a high dosage of it, and then he tested me again just a few days later just to make sure my levels were decreasing, which they ended up decreasing. So I was very grateful for that. They were not in normal range. They were still high and out of range, but at least progress was being made. So he said I could lower my dosage, and so I am currently taking it at a lower dosage, and I'll be checking back with him to get tested again very soon, and hopefully my numbers will have improved even more. Another thing I forgot to mention, as far as a natural approach, the natural doctor also recommended me to do what they call the autoimmune diet or autoimmune plan. Basically, it's a very, very strict diet that cuts out a lot of things. However, I've read a lot of things about it. I've heard testimonials about it, and it really does work. It helps people who are dealing with thyroid issues or other autoimmune diseases. And, I had taken a look at it, and honestly, I'm just gonna be honest with you. I'm normally a very disciplined person, and I normally, if I set my mind to something, I'm just gonna do it. However, in this season of my life and just all the things I've been going through, it's been hard for me to have as much discipline and willpower. So the diet, the autoimmune diet, just wasn't really practical for me to do over the long term at this season of life. If I had the willpower and the discipline, I would love to do it, but it's very limiting. So instead of doing the exact autoimmune plan, I just focus mainly on cutting out sugar, because sugar is bad for you. We all know it. It just tastes good, so we like to eat it. But I cut out sugar, and I also pretty much cut out all processed foods. So I was trying to focus on eating very clean. So that's something you can do even when you're not dealing with this illness, but it's also very helpful when you are trying to get your health under control with, autoimmune diseases and things like that. So basically the lifestyle changes that I'm going to be, focusing on is just, overall doing well with my diet, not eating sugar and processed foods. Also, getting more sleep. It's been a struggle because I have turned into a night owl because I just don't go to sleep as easily. And so I want to be able to just really focus on getting good quality sleep and going to bed at a reasonable hour. Because I read somewhere where when you go to bed between the hours of 10 to 12, that's like the sweet spot when your body is restoring itself and restoring all of its good hormones and all that stuff. So if you're going to bed after that time frame, basically your body is being robbed of all that time. It could be restoring itself and healing. And so I know that that is something I really need to do better in, and just really trying to live a healthy lifestyle and do what I know to do. And hopefully I will be able to heal and just be able to maintain a healthy thyroid balance, because you don't want hyperthyroidism, but you also don't want hypothyroidism, which I'll cover a little bit. That's one thing I was concerned about with the medication. If you are on that medication that I'm taking, the thyroid blocking methimazole, if you take it too long or if you take too much of it, it could end up turning into the opposite problem, which is hypothyroidism. So basically, you go from everything going too fast to everything going like slow, like a snail's pace. So I'm just going to read off some of the typical symptoms for hypothyroidism, and that is weight gain and or difficulty losing weight, constipation, fatigue, forgetfulness, depression, dry skin and hair loss, slow heart rate, feeling cold often, greater sensitivity to cold, and changes in the menstrual cycle, usually longer, heavy periods. So I don't want that either. I don't want hyperthyroidism, nor do I want hypothyroidism. So it's all about having the proper balance. And so that's really what I'm working on getting, is a good balance, a healthy balance. So my metabolism will be at a rate that is good for my body and not too fast or too slow. So how am I currently doing? Better. You know, it's been an emotional roller coaster, ups and downs, being honest. You know, I have good days and I have bad days, but I'm still in the trenches of trying to figure out how to deal with this and how to heal from it. You know, I'm in the journey right now. And so I'm sharing with you guys my heart. I really hope that this video will educate you guys if you're dealing with, you know, a thyroid issue. But I also hope that it will motivate you guys that even when you're in the trenches, when you're in the hard part of the story, just to keep on going. And I want to also stress that it's okay to slow down. I had to do that. And that was hard for me at first because I'm normally used to just going. But my body told me that if I don't slow down, then it's going to have to slow me down, you know? So I had to learn the hard way. But I just wanted to share my journey in the trenches so you guys can, you know, watch my testimony as I'm, you know, still dealing with things, still not fully healed, but just I hope it encourages you guys and inspires you guys that even if you're dealing with tough situations, there's a lot of just obstacles in life. And if you're dealing with those, just know that you can continue to reach your goals and do what God has for you, even in the midst of it. And so I'm here to encourage you. I'm here to give you that push that if you have not started what you desire to start, just start. And if you started, but you stopped, start again. That's what I had to do. And like I said, I had to work up the courage. I kept coming up with excuses as to why not to record and film and whatnot. But I just could not get rid of that desire, that passion that was in me to help and impact people and change lives. I believe that God gave me that desire for a reason. I know that God has a purpose for my life, and I know that He's going to use me to impact others, even in the midst of the struggle. So I'm going to be keeping you guys in the loop of how things are going with my health condition, and I am hoping, I'm believing for, and I'm praying that I will be healed and I'll be able to share my testimony with you guys being on the other side. Thank you for taking the time to watch this video, and I want to invite you to just come along on this journey with me. Click that subscribe button, and that way you can follow me on this journey, and I hope that it will inspire you, encourage you, motivate you, and help you. And let's just do this thing together, all right? So thanks again for taking the time to watch this video. Please give it a thumbs up and comment below. I love to hear your thoughts. It will really encourage me just to see that you guys are there and supporting as I'm going out there and doing this. And I will just continue to be putting the content out. All right. So thanks again. Hope you guys have a wonderful week, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.